Russia turns to fellow outcasts North Korea and Iran for help with faltering war effort. To get right into the news, it says with aid continuing to flow into UKR from the West and its own military increasingly strained by the conflict now entering its 9th month, it says that Russia is turning to fellow outcasts from the international community for shipments of weapons, or at least that's what they're saying. It says last month's attacks by Vlad against Kiev and other UKR targets were conducted by Shahed 136 drones sent by Iran in violations of sanctions imposed by the United Nations. It says now intelligence indicates that Vlad is now receiving aid from NK, North Korea, other heavily sanctioned nation that operates outside the bounds of international norms. North Korea is covertly supplying Vlad's conflict in UKR with a significant number of artillery shells while obfuscating the real destination of the arms shipments. Well, of course, by trying to make it appear as though they were going to countries in the Middle East and North Africa. So this is what they are saying, and this is exactly what we have been talking about with North Korea being able to do things basically not by the book. If this is true, again, we'll talk about that and much, much more. Obviously, this is not a good thing if Vlad and Kim have been doing business. But of course, we all knew this because we covered how they were doing all of these secret meetings, Kim and Xi and Kim and Vlad. So we'll talk about this and much, much more on tonight's show. Again, it's going to be packed, so stick around. Nothing in this show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough. All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam, a.k.a. Marf, and this is Marfoogle News. Today we have a ton to go over, and if you are new here, remember we have a full bibliography of all of our sources over on marfooglenews.com. Now, when you go over there, you will notice that there is a space where you can actually sign up for notifications and our email list. You'll see, of course, at marfooglenews.com, you can get reliable notifications from us rather than the platforms. And then you'll see that it's all easily navigatable by thumbnail. So you will look for today's thumbnail, History in the Making, Allies and Enemies. Once you click on that, you will find that we have every single article, tweet, video, picture, document that we're going to show you here today, including anything that is brought to our attention by the audience or the chat. That will be integrated live on the show. It is 7:34 p.m. on the 2nd of November, and we're going to talk about everything that has happened in the last 24 hours and the things that are important from the last week. So stick around. It's going to be a good one. Let's bring in my co-host/internet brother, Dex James. What is going on, and how are you doing today?
Well, hello, Adam, and hello, Foogle fam. I am doing just fine.
Now, remember, if we're not live for any reason, it's just myself, Dex, and volunteer mods. If there is a night where we can't go because of my health issues or anything else, make sure to go check out marfooglenews.com/friends. We have all sorts of friends in the Foogle family that are creators, that are creatives, that have books on Amazon. There are artists with paintings, beautiful paintings. Go check them out. They are over on marfooglenews.com/friends. There's also all of the channels that we obviously vouch for and say that are awesome people that are helping and, of course, helping grow the community and helping the community manage with everything that is going on. That is over there at marfooglenews.com/friends. Twitter is reportedly working on an OnlyFans style feature that would allow creators to charge for video content, but some employees say it's high risk. Dex, this is kind of, I'm assuming they're trying to gear this towards people that have been kicked off of other platforms, and then they can do some sort of, Patreon type of video for that or something. Is that what they're worried about? Is bad actors, as they call them, going over there and making videos?
I guess that's what they're thinking. This really, to me, seems like the turning point for some stuff with the Twitter platform. We're either going to see a great change, and I don't mean necessarily great as in we're all going to love it, but we're going to see a significant change in the platform in the coming months, years, or it's just going to fall apart. It's one of those two. And I really don't think it'll fall apart. It's got too big of an audience already. I think what we're going to see, and we talked yesterday about the fact that they wanted to, the FCC wanted to ban TikTok. We've talked, about a lot of these other challenges in the video space. So I often thought that, Elon would look at this. We've talked specifically about him making this one app. I've often thought he would look at this as a way of potentially trying to capture some of that market. Now, I know OnlyFans style is not TikTok, but it is video. And let's not forget, Twitter had Periscope. They still have video capability. It's not out of the realm for them to be in the video streaming business. So this is one of those inklings that we're getting a glimpse into what they're thinking of doing and what things they may or may not be adding. But it won't surprise me if we don't look at the Twitter platform much differently in the future, as far as content and creators and what we and how we can share content with as creators and as audiences. So very, very likely this is going to shift. Now, the other big question is what's going to shift with that app, the Twitter app, which is just about everybody has, or it's defaultly installed. And I think a lot of people worry about his ambitions for product X, as he calls it.
Yeah, the Everything app, which he has shown his admiration for WeChat. WeChat is the Chinese app that essentially does everything. It tracks everyone. It has everyone's biometrics ingrained in it. It is how they, it's part of their Ganda. It's how they push out alerts and tell them what to do and, what books to read on their supreme leader and all sorts of weird stuff. But that's the fear. They say that, referred to as paywalled video, the new feature would allow content creators to charge users a fee to view videos on the platform. That to me sounds like somebody who is basically, like many people already do. They may want to take the money from the people that are, afraid to say it on, this platform or others on any of the other platforms, and they go to their Patreon. The thing is, right now, even if you had like a Patreon set up with, exclusive videos, those exclusive videos, those can get you booted, and then they all communicate. So for, high risk content, it sounds like he's trying to be that platform and take all of that money for those people that are afraid to make that content on other platforms. That's what I think that he's possibly thinking with this. But they're saying that could be a high risk, and the OnlyFans kind of model is the same. I mean, it's like it's a pay to play. Go ahead.
Well, and let's not forget, his background was PayPal, so he's been in the payment processing business, and take that along with the fact that he needs to make money, and he potentially is going to be losing ad dollars. A lot of advertisers said they were going to bail. And some actually, I think we put it in Web Only last night, that some analysts have said that company is actually worth 100 billion, not just 44. That he actually got it for a deal. So if he monetizes that platform correctly, he could probably make a ton of money. So
they said
like
hundreds. They said hundreds of billions.
Yeah. So this is just one way in which he can start to gain revenue for Twitter. I think it's also been noted and being discussed that they might even be charging $8 a month for the blue check marks. So it doesn't mean that that's how you get one, but if you do have one, you have to pay $8 a month to keep it, or even $20 a month. They haven't really decided. So there's lots of changes coming. So be on the lookout. Some may not affect us, some may affect us, and some may be important, and some may be completely irrelevant.
Yep. Well, we'll follow it. If it turns into the Everything app, that's where it gets scary. That's where we get into kind of a social credit score system, and that's why people in this community are paying attention to it. As far as him taking over, have you noticed a difference with Twitter? That is a question I would like to ask you. I have not been super active in the last few days since his takeover, but I have noticed it's already grown. It's just weird because before the Twitter would just be purged like every 6 months. I would just lose hundreds of people from nowhere, and then people would email me and say that they were unfollowed. So obviously, it wasn't people unsubscribing, it was the purge. And then you look all over Twitter, and that same day, it would be thousands and thousands of people saying that they got people taken. We all know what's going on. They say they're purging it of bots and all of this. I don't know about that. I think at that time, they were getting rid of conservatives. But it says a swarm of 500 drones will plague New York City with advertising tomorrow. So pretty trippy. They're gonna do these organized drones, and this is going to be something of the future. They're planning to do this a whole lot more. The companies that are making these kinds of AI kind of communicating drones are actually growing faster than almost any other drone business. It says New Yorkers are used to ads dotting the landscape, but now they can't even look to the skies for refuge. The Gothamist reports mobile developer King and show organizer Pixies is flying a swarm of at least 500 LED-equipped drones over New York City's skyline on November 3rd to advertise Candy Crush. They'll take off and remain in New Jersey for the 10-minute presentation, but if you'll spot them, you're within a 1-mile radius of Battery Park. This isn't the first drone light show aimed at New York City. In June, Pixies orchestrated a swarm that promoted the NBA draft by flying over the Hudson River. Company general manager Jeff Kaplan characterized the Candy Crush promo as the next wave. However, it's safe to say that this will be hard to avoid if you're in the area. The largest drone show to date from Hyundai's Genesis brand, which flew 3,281 drones over Shanghai in March of 2021, which we actually covered that. This is pretty trippy, but it's also the future of advertising as far as utilizing the sky space. We've even covered, in fact, Dex, do you remember how we covered that they're talking about advertisements in space and possibly putting up essentially billboards in space that you would see everywhere?
Absolutely. It was Vlad who was going to do it, and he was going to do it. And I was thinking he would actually make more money by putting it up and advertising over other countries like ours. And then what are we going to do about it? Like, who owns that airspace? And what happens if somebody like that country or this advertising group decides to, blanket the entire sky? Who gets the right to have that space, that amount of space to use, and the time period in which they can use it?
Well, one thing to think about, what if they permanently put drones up in the sky as part of, security? And they're going to say in the future, what's trippy is there's a game, and I'm trying to think of the name of it. It's, what is it? It's something dogs. It's, do you guys know what game I'm talking about? It's, guard dogs or something. I know the chat will know it. It was set in the future in London, and they actually have drones. It's a hacking game where you hack everything. If anybody remembers what that game was. But the game actually had, not War Dogs, Watch Dogs. Thank you, End Times. Watch Dogs, the video game, which obviously video games now are, they put millions and millions of dollars into them. They show a London, and it's kind of like GTA, only it's GTA where you can hack the city streets. If you're getting chased by a police car or something, you can actually hack the steel poles that come out of the streets, and then the cops hit the divider. It's kind of a trip. But they actually have this realistic vision of the future, which right now it sounds crazy, but in the future, having all of these drones surveil us and watch over us. We already know that the police are flying above us at certain heights, and they have recording drones in high drug areas. They're actually putting these very silent drones with camera and audio recording, and they'll have these little blue lights basically telling you that they're recording you. And they can zoom in and they can listen to people doing their deals and all sorts of crazy stuff. But normally, those now, limited by technology, have, kind of a local police station van or base nearby that it takes off from. Our police station here in Seattle already has one. And others like New York already have these things. When it gets to the point where they power themselves or they're able to just land, charge, and then go back up again, this is where we're going to see drones up above major cities, and they're just going to be policing the streets. And then the footage will go into AI, and if it catches a crime, and this sounds nuts, but if the AI detects a crime being committed, so somebody's snatching a purse, then it will automatically report back, and they'll dispatch a police officer without anybody calling. This is what they're planning for. This is the framework that is already being put up. On top of delivery drones and all of that. That game is a trip because it has all of these drones you can hack, which is commercial drones, taxi drones that are taking people from place A to place B, and then shipping drones where it's taking a package, and then delivery drones where it's taking pizzas and stuff, and then police drones. This is the future, and that is what is absolutely nuts. By the way, I didn't even know that Candy Crush was still crushing it. Just kidding, but Candy Crush has been around for like as long as cell phones. I'm surprised people still play it. I guess there's always somebody getting their first phone. Saudis in U.S. targeted as kingdom cracks down on dissent. So this is a trip. It says a graduate student at Boston's Northeastern University, Prince Abdullah bin Faisal Al Saud, seldom mentioned he was a member of Saudi Arabia's sprawling royal family, friends say. He avoided talking about Saudi politics, focused on his studies, career plans, and love of soccer. But after a fellow prince, a cousin, was imprisoned back at home, Prince Abdullah discussed it with relatives in calls made from the U.S. According to Saudi officials who somehow were listening, on a trip back to Saudi Arabia, Prince Abdullah was imprisoned because of those calls. An initial 20-year sentence was hiked up to 30 years in August. It says Prince Abdullah's case, detailed in Saudi court documents obtained by the Associated Press, hasn't been previously reported, but it's not isolated. Over the last 5 years, Saudi surveillance, intimidation, and pursuit of Saudis on U.S. soil have intensified as the kingdom steps up repression under its de facto ruler, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. According to the FBI, rights groups, and 2 years of interviews with Saudis living abroad, some of those Saudis said that FBI agents advised them not to go home. So Dex, they're actually, well, first of all these different countries are listening in on us, but this is kind of surprising as far as what they're able to do here.
Well, yeah, and this is very similar to what we talked about what Xi is doing, right, with his going into other countries and reaching to their own citizens. So thinking that the Saudis are going to be targeting in the U.S. are being targeted by the kingdom is kind of interesting, to say the least. And I guess the real question is, what are they going to do? What kind of target is really there? Are we, because we've seen some pretty extreme things, and then we've seen some pretty bad, but not too extreme. One thing to convince someone to go home. It's another thing to, take somebody out, so to speak. And a lot of those different things have happened. We've seen all different versions of it.
We know that there might be another reason, but why all of a sudden is this happening? What kind of other reason? And chat, feel free to chime in. Why do you think this is actually happening in the first place? Dex, why would that be a sign of something to come? Like, why is this even happening in the first place? It doesn't, it's like they're setting up for something.
I think when I think about it, especially between, looking at multiple countries doing it, is starting to sort of tear down walls of sovereignty, and in the sense of saying, like, this country is its own country. Well, now when other countries can reach in and do things, it starts to become the norm. And if people get used to that, then all of a sudden, okay, we can now take it to a different level where we can start to say we have rules that go across the boundaries, and we can start to then maybe take the next level and say, well, we are going to have singular rules across all of our countries. And then before you know it, all sovereignty is lost, and we're just one world unit working as under one rule of law.
Well, that's what it seems like, and that's exactly what it makes me think, is how are we letting them impose their stuff here? Who in our government is just letting it fly? It's almost like it's planned. It's almost like it's on purpose. That all of these countries are working together, and I mean that would be like that would be like you had a New York City police officer walking around in Saudi Arabia and just grabbing an American and be like, "Hey, Come over here. Let me chat with you. Hey, yeah, I need you to go home. It's just weird. Why? How is this even possible? Shouldn't there be, obviously before, if you had to grab somebody from another country, you had to go through this huge process and extradite them and everything else. It seems now they're trying to cut down those kind of rules. So very, very weird. And then we're about to talk about yet another rocket is expected to crash from China. This is the third one, I believe. We'll talk about that here in just a second. I do want to remind you, though, we recommend the EMP shield because it is an actual device that can protect you against an EMP blast. Now, if an EMP ever does happen, it's obviously in the low probability, but that probability is now going up and up and up with the more countries that we are now intertwined with. If you do want to protect yourself, the great thing about this is that their most popular version, the car or the truck version, the automobile version, that can be wired in about less than 15 minutes, and it can protect your car from actually dying. So if an EMP or a CME, the natural kind, happens, this can ground the signal in less than 500 trillionths of a second before it's able to fry your device. That way, if you work far from home, or if you're trying to get home or trying to bug out, that way when you go to start your car, it's not going to just sit there and do nothing. It will actually start and get home. That's what most people end up getting, but EMP Shield actually makes devices that protect your boats, your motorcycles, obviously your cars and your trucks. They protect generators, gas generators, and they even make a custom one, an EMP Shield, directly for the Energy Flex 1500 generator, the solar generator. They also make one for your home. The home version does need to be wired in by a professional. You would need an electrician to do it. But once it's wired in, it actually protects within 250 linear feet of where it's wired in. So most homes, it will cover anything within 250 walkable feet. So again, make sure to go check this out. Whenever you go and purchase from any of our affiliates, you're not only supporting independent media, and again, we don't have any backup. We don't have a multi-billion-dollar company. We don't have a multi-channel network behind us. We have you guys. So it supports us financially, and it helps you get a discount. You get $50 off per device, and that stacks on top of any of their holiday sales. Anything that's going on, that will always stack on top of that. It's 100% American-made, and it's a veteran-owned business. It's definitely a good one to support. Anybody who's dealt with them will tell you. Marfooglenews.com/EMP. Thank you in advance. And then, again, you can ask anybody who already has them. They're super easy to do. All right, and then now, Dex, we have another rocket that's creaming out of control. I have to say, after the first one was really weird, everybody followed it from the beginning of the story to the end. The second one, a lot of people tracked this thing. I wonder if as many people are going to talk about this one. It seems like even the first one, there were kind of odds that it may hit the U.S. and it could just land in a city. The second one, I believe, had similar things. I mean, there was a possibility. Now you have three. It's like the odds are going up because now there's multiple occurrences of these out-of-control rockets. And I just wonder, is this a rocket that's coming off of their recent launch to get the space station up there, or what?
Well, and not only that, it just seems so, irresponsible, I guess, to keep doing this. Like, it's almost like they don't care. It's like, okay, well, we can get up there. We just don't know how to bring our stuff back down appropriately. So we just let it go wherever it goes. And that's a problem to the population. Sure, odds are it'll hit the water. There's more water on Earth than there is land. So that's the odds. But still, it's a scary thing to think there's this giant rocket thing that's going to come down at some point, and it's going to be happening in the next few days. And we don't know where it's going to land. Everybody will track it. They'll all have their predictions. But it literally could land on someone's house. It literally could land in a shopping mall. It literally could land, in the middle of a busy highway. We don't know. And that's kind of troublesome. I think maybe they should get some lessons from Elon if they want to bring stuff back down safely, or at least put some parachutes on these things so they can control it somewhat.
Well, so I wonder, this is now the third. They just said, we just covered it a few days ago, that they launched up the third and final piece to the Chinese space station, which I was blown away that they're about to finish the space station in 2022. I thought that was years away. It takes years to do this kind of stuff. Why are they moving so quickly on that? I just wonder if all three of these rockets were from the same kind of delivery. Was the first one, and I don't know, you guys could probably prove me wrong here in a second. I was just, free balling on this one. There's 3 rockets that went out of control, and there was 3 parts that were delivered up to the space station. Were these special kind of rockets, or one that they can't control, and that's why they're coming back down like this? I just thought the timing is weird, since we just saw them launch the 3rd part to the space station, and now we have another uncontrolled rocket.
It likely is, Adam, and it likely is that maybe they had to get there so quickly they were willing to cut this corner. This was one of the corners they said, you know what, let it go. We'll see where it lands. There's the whole world. It's not going to hit us.
Well, it's like, it's reckless. It's like they don't care. They're just trying to get that thing up there. And they said that the new Chinese space station is a defense platform. It's for military use. So they made that clear. They said it in their speech about how it's going to be crucial to the defense of China. It's not like normally, by the way, ISS was all about experiments, and I'm sure there was some military use for it, but the ISS was always about doing space experiments, like, growing a plant in space, or testing light theory, or, doing anti-gravity tests. What they are putting up right there, and they've already done, I mean, were most of you surprised to find out that they launched the 3rd and final piece to the Chinese space station? We heard about this. I feel like it's only been like a year, but it was like, I know that they said it was worked on for 10 years, but it wasn't announced to the public until recently, and now all of a sudden they're going to be done. Because once they launch this thing up, from the piece of media that I saw that saw an animation of how they kind of did the first 2, is that it automatically, it had little thruster jets that would push it up to against each other, and then these clamps would clamp it in and seal it. So it was kind of like these 3 parts kind of fit it like Lego, and then it would clamp automatically, because you can't really have people up there with rivets or anything. Maybe there is somebody up there riveting it, but it's wild. All of a sudden, they're going to have their own space station up. The ISS is on its last legs, and Vlad and G are basically saying they're not going to be a part of it anymore. What the hell is going on above us? Well, you have at least 3 Space Force commanders who have stated publicly and very blatantly that they say there is a war going on above us. They didn't mince words. They said that we are in conflict in space. So something is going on. Civilians are going to be distracted by every little thing. They're going to tell us everything is okay until the very last minute. So this is a trip, another out-of-control rocket. And then North Korea warns U.S. of powerful response to allied drills. So we've been doing drills with South Korea for, every year. It did stop, I believe. Back in 2017, they made a huge, huge deal about it, and now they're making a huge deal again. There's been tit for tats. There's been back and forths, and it says that NK's foreign ministry criticized the United States for expanding joint military exercises with South Korea. It says that it claims are practiced for a potential invasion, and it warned Tuesday of a more powerful follow-up measure in response. The statement from the ministry came as the U.S. and South Korea conduct aerial drills involving more than 200 warplanes, including their advanced F-35 fighter jets, as they step up their defense posture in the face of NK's increased weapons testing and growing nuclear threat. It says that North Korea has ramped up its weapons demonstrations to a record pace this year, launching more than 40 ballistic missiles, including developmental intercontinental ballistic missiles and intermediate-range missiles fired over Japan, which set off air raids in Japan. People were told by text that there were missiles flying above them. Pretty freaky stuff. Just today, which we'll talk about, of course, more were launched. It's all sorts of pandemonium. This is a flashpoint for the entire world. Not only North Korea and South Korea, you have Iran and, of course, others that are fighting right now. And then you have China and Taiwan. So many, many places. And then India and Pakistan. There's all sorts of things happening here. Dex, do you want to talk about the 23 missiles that actually triggered today's air raid?
Well, yeah, as we spoke last night, we broke the story. Actually, somebody in Fugel fam told us to go look it up, and we were breaking it as it happened. It was 10 at that time. It now turned out to be 23. So 23 missiles from NK firing over, and some of them landing in areas that are really close and past the divide line where they should be anywhere in that area. And then, of course, SK turns around and fires their own back in retaliation. So this is getting heated. So the story we were just talking about, Kim is really upset about the drills, especially 200 planes, F-35s, all that just basically surrounding him or in his, basically up his grill, so to speak. He doesn't like that at all. He doesn't want any of that near him because he's afraid that at any moment that means that he's going to be the target. He continues to feel like he's the target. We know that because he put laws and rules in place to automatically launch any of his nuclear arsenal. Should he be attacked by anyone at any time, no questions asked, launch. Don't have to wait for permission. So all of these things he's put in place are because he feels threatened. And the more we do, and the more his adversaries, which is us and the South and Japan and others, the more we do around him, the more he feels threatened. So as that happens, he starts launching more missiles, 23. So it's only a matter of time. If this doesn't cool down, if this continues to escalate, it's going to escalate into a greater level. The next step, one of the things that they're worried about him doing is an actual nuclear test. They're also worried about the ICBMs that he keeps launching because he did launch one literally over Japan, which obviously upset Japan. Could you imagine if someone lobbed an ICBM over our country? We would not be happy at all. I don't think the ICBM would make it to our border before we probably started some sort of retaliation, not knowing what might be in it. So I could just only imagine what the Japanese people went through when they were thinking that, here comes a potential incoming. It could have been a nuke for all they knew, right? So this game he's playing and the game we're playing, no matter which side you pick, although I don't think it's really difficult to pick sides on this one, but it's not a healthy game. It's not going to produce stability. It's not going to produce peace. It's only going to produce, instability and the quick opportunity for a fast escalation of events. And that's what is probably the most worrisome about what's going on right now for the folks that are in the South there and for the folks in Japan. And then, of course, the U.S. forces that do protect them.
And when they fired back, it's like they're purposely North Korea fired towards them, and then you just have planes firing. And I don't know what goes through their head when they say, okay, well, we're going to fire missiles back. Obviously, both parties know that they have stuff, and especially North Korea knows South has it. It's like, what's the point of wasting money and firing back at them? I guess it's straight up kind of a pissing match, like, oh, well, we got missiles too. It's like, how much did whatever they fired off into the water, how much did that cost? I think about it like they don't even think about these things. They're just throwing away money. On the North, you could see them doing that because they're trying to scare and saber rattle and trying to prove themselves. I guess I don't understand if they are going to fire something back, just hit them. At this point, I don't know why they put up with North Korea unless they actually have something, or there's some corrupt stuff going on where all of these countries, including possibly people in South Korea, are having them do stuff illegal for them that they can't do anywhere else. It seems like there's this give and take. Obviously, Kim has ties with China and Vlad. Maybe the rest of the world leaders know that there's something there, like Vlad will come to their assistance or this or that, because otherwise they would have taken that country out, just like they took other leaders in the world out. I know that they say he drives at night. He has people drive him under the cover of night, that he actually has built hallways and outside hallways to cover from satellite video. So like, even if there was, 4 buildings, he would build these kind of like high school covered walkways so he could walk from place to place without having satellites watching him. So if it's true what they say, he's super paranoid about getting, assassinated. But at the same time, it's like, how did they even let him get to this point? He has FOBs. The late, great Dr. Peter Pry who was on the actual EMP, what was it? The EMP task force for the Pentagon. He actually said that their FOBS system is one of the greatest threats to the United States. That's why we talk about EMP shield and everything else, because they say they have a workable fractional orbital bombardment system. It would basically wrap around the planet and come from where we don't have very much defenses, and their satellite that already goes over us could actually deliver something like that. So it's a very freaky thing. And how did they even get to that point when for years and years and years they've been this outcast? I think it's because they've had very powerful friends that they've been doing illegal stuff for, the unmentionable stuff that all these countries are secretly doing, creating things that nobody would ever approve of morally. Who knows? I mean, when people say clones, people are like, oh, that's, tinfoil hat. Clones are real. The cloning is a science, and it is a real thing. If they were going to do something just hypothetically like that, they would go to somewhere like NK and pay them to do it there. That's what I think, at least. What do you guys think? And then China could be gearing up to invade Taiwan now that President Xi has installed a war cabinet. So I talked about this earlier. Make sure to go over to Marfoogle News to see my full view on this, and we'll go over to Dex's. But like I said, they used a great example here. Imagine the head of the SEC. Imagine, Speaker of the House, or imagine 3 different leaders in our cabinet just all of a sudden when they switch over and say, President B went on for another 4 years. The day right when they say he is, imagine just guards coming in and grabbing several people out of the building and just escorting them out, and then bringing in, these wartime generals and police officers in their place. He basically replaced anybody that has publicly, by the way, some of those guys have publicly said that they were against war, against taking Taiwan. He just removed them. So now he's put in a cabinet of these mad dogs, people that are fully 100% dedicated to Xi. Their ties go way back. He's got his inner circle basically tied down, and he's got this war cabinet of all pro-war, people. Dex, what do you think about this? Obviously, this piece is basically saying that it's going to happen in the next 2 years. Most of us think it's going to happen even sooner.
His example is spot on. He basically installed in the equivalent of an SEC position, a finance minister position, and the head of the central bank. He replaced him with a spy chief, a police chief, and a weapons manufacturer. Okay. So think about that. Like if we did that like overnight with the stroke of a pen, wiped out those 3 positions and replaced them with somebody from the head of the CIA, somebody from the head of the FBI, and somebody from the biggest weapons manufacturer, what would that tell everybody? What signal does that give? And now the interesting thing is we've talked about this notion of a war cabinet has come up before. Others have said it. The reason this one's kind of important, and no, not to say the other ones weren't, is this is coming from a financial investor. Okay. And for what it's worth there, these people in the finance world, in the on the street, so to speak, or Wall Street, so to speak, they have a lot of insight. And don't kid yourself. They do, because they manage tons of money. They have the connections with the bankers, with the money. They know when conflict's going to happen before it happens, right before it happens. They know all of it because you'll watch the market react. A lot of times it happens before, and then it happens much more after. But when you see these types of people make these statements, it's kind of a big deal. And he was coming at it from a financial point of view. Again, we've talked about how the market there has taken a massive dive after he was reinstated as the leader. But it's really, as this person points out, it looks to be that he's positioning everything for conflict, positioning everything for war. And that is something the financial markets never like, because there's only one group that wins, and that's the manufacturing sector. But there's so many that lose. So it's never a good financial time, especially when you're already in crunch time, so to speak, when it comes to the finances. So the monies in the markets are not doing well. So to have a major conflict come up is not going to be a good sign, and you're not going to see a bull market from that. That's why they have such a massive dip, and a lot of people are believing that this is right around the corner. I agree. The 2-year window he put up here is probably a lot less. He's probably giving them a lot more time.
And that's Kyle Bass, which we talked about. Nouriel Roubini, another well-renowned economist. So you have economists, these investors, you have everyone stating the same thing. It's not like these are, crazy people on the fringe side of things. These are people involved in the markets and in everything else. And their whole job is to look at patterns. Their whole job is to look at what is going on and see and try to predict what's going to happen in the future. So it seems like it's common sense to me with all of the big picture pieces falling into place. And it's not like you have to go far to connect the dots on this one. This is something that everyone should just assume. Like World War II, they said in history books, it was the war that everyone knew that was going to happen. Everyone knew it was going to be a war. Everyone knew. Because it was the same thing. It was for a long time before we jumped in, they were already at war in Europe. All of this stuff was going on, and they were guiding us towards getting into it. Now they're doing the same thing with us. Back then, they were saying, why are we sending all this money and equipment gear to other countries when we should be keeping it here? The same thing. Even the same slogans are being used today. So it's crazy how history repeats itself, and you cannot say this is cliche. This is real. This is happening. Your kids and your family is going to be involved in this in some way or form. Even if it never hits here in the U.S. or in Australia, I can't even say, even if it doesn't hit Europe, it's going to hit Europe. But even if it didn't hit us over here, the financial aspect of this will. We're talking about depression. We're talking about, and I'm not talking about being sad. I'm talking about full-on monetary collapse if certain things go down. This isn't like an asteroid hitting 1 in a billion chance. This is already happening, and the moves are being made. And people want to deny it. People want to say it's fear-mongering this, fear-mongering that. Fear-mongering, and, by the way, there are people that may actually fearmonger. Maybe they fearmonger to get you to do something or this or that. But at this point, they're still correct. Because this is now to the point where it's really hard to deny what's happening. The independent and mainstream are in agreement. This is about to happen. So I don't see how people can still say that it's just going to just unfold. It's not these little regional things that kind of go up and go down. We're talking about Vlad, and all of Russia is now invading a country. Think about that. Vlad is invading a country. Not just a little annexation. They're in the entire country. So, and then China is involved. All of their allies are involved. And by the way, wartime, during this, there's sanctions, which sanctions everybody think, oh, well, it's just financial stuff. But all of those sanctions are being curtailed and skirted around using all of their allies. So it's their allies versus our allies. And what's sad is, like, if we needed to go to war right now, people don't support our side. And it's crazy that do you remember when people were gung-ho to join the U.S. military and fight for our country? Whatever is in charge right now has everybody like, I don't want to fight for this country. I definitely salute all of the military that are currently serving, because no matter what's going on above their heads, they're still fighting for us. And those people are still in there. Those veterans and those people that fought for our country, and especially the ones that have passed already, they're rolling in their graves right now because we are losing freedom after freedom after freedom. And the current people are sitting there on TikTok saying how they regret joining the service. It shouldn't be like that. If we were just, and if we were, if everybody agreed with what we were doing, it would be the opposite. It would be like, hell yeah. Where is that spirit? Well, I'll tell you, that spirit can return in one day. If something happens to us, if a big event happens, and they know this too, if one big event happens and a bunch of us perish, then it will flip on its head. And you just watch. A big event like a Pearl Harbor or a 2001 September, something like that happens, everybody will be flying American flags and saying, gung-ho about it. But just remember that all of the previous instances had a lot of questions surrounding them. So, and then before we go into the 3 Russian MiGs, containers that store Kinzhal missiles spotted in Belarus, another sign, yet another piece of the puzzle. Quick reminder, if you do need food and if you need long-term survival food, go to marfooglenews.com/prep. The reason why is now there is one of the biggest discounts on this as they've ever done. It's $250 off, and it will last 25 years. This is everything you need to survive for whatever period you choose. You can choose a 3-day kit you can throw in your bag, or you can take a 3-month kit for one person. That's 90 days of food that will get you through any kind of disaster. Again, this is to get you through the hardest of times or a natural disaster. We just had a 6.0 happen off of California. Obviously, that wasn't bad. But if something happened in the next couple days, as far as like a huge San Andreas or Cascadia subduction zone, then a lot of people will be struggling. For any kind of natural disaster, hurricanes, earthquakes, it doesn't have to be the end of the world to be able to utilize extra food. Not to mention, if any of the crazy situations happen, including hyperinflation, you'll want to have food that is already there and ready to eat rather than go to the store for a potential $50 loaf of bread. And people say, bread will never be $50. Well, tell that to Venezuela. Go to marfooglenews.com/prep. Again, that is has all sorts of other great stuff there as well. But again, that food is $250 off on the 3-month plan. It is the biggest discount. $200 was close. Now it is the largest discount they've done since 2019. All right, and then that helps us, and it helps you, and you get something out of it. You're not just giving something away for free. You're not just giving your money away. You're actually purchasing something and helping independent media. All right, and then Dex, the Belarus stuff, obviously Belarus popping up in any kind of story is noteworthy because Belarus has been a part of this whole shambles since the very beginning, with them showing their map of them possibly invading Moldova, from all of the weird things, the iodide tablets and everything else happening in relation to Belarus. What do you think is going on with this?
Well, look, it's no real surprise that they got a video or they've got satellite images that says there's, Vlad's people are in Belarus. Of course they are. We know that. They've been storing up there. But what's important is they've got 3, at least in this one picture, 3 MiG-31K. And these are interceptor jets. And the reason these are important is because these are the ones that can hold the Kinzhal, which is the hypersonic missile. Okay. And this is one of the ones that we would expect them to use. Now, we know they've used some hypersonics, but they didn't use them with nuclear tips on them. They used them with just regular non-nukes. But these are the ones we expect. And we had heard that they were moving a lot of their nuclear type munitions into positions. We also saw that they had moved some of their other boomers over near Finland and other locations. So to see this set up is a little bit more important than just saying, oh, we're looking at troops over there, because we've seen that before. And not that's not important. It is important. It's all part of what is going on in the conflict. There's always going to be movements. There's always going to be buildups. And, everybody wants to have the intel so that the other side can prepare or defend or offend against it. So this is not a surprise, but what is surprising is the type of equipment, because it does therefore back up some of the claims that they've been making about saying that they're willing to take it to the next level, and they're putting the proper equipment in place that will take it to that next level.
Well, one thing to note is we've seen a lot less of the just straight up like propaganda type stories of saying this is, the hearsay stuff that is coming from intelligence, and we're seeing more of actual movements, actual notifications of deployments. Obviously, they have super high-tech carrier heading that way. They've got 9,000 NATO troops on the road. I think it's the Roosevelt, one of the most advanced. I feel like I'm getting that wrong. I want to say it's the Theodore Roosevelt, the USS Roosevelt, but they have all sorts of actual deployments happening. We're hearing from military group members that they are moving massive artillery. They already moved artillery in 2019 or 2020, but they're moving these massive, massive weapon systems up into Alaska, according to our military group. So what the heck is going on here? You have generators being shipped around the states. This is another thing that kind of got me, is everybody, and by the way, if you have video, marfooglenews.com/playmyvideo. That's again, marfooglenews.com/playmyvideo. They're shipping these massive military generators everywhere. The truckers are actually telling us that. It's not the military members, it's the truckers that are driving around and they're seeing these convoys, and it's all power equipment. That says to me that they're at least moving or even drilling for an event where they would need to use those power generators and set up, mobile command bases or whatever. And then, of course, we talked about, and somebody who's new here probably wouldn't have known all of this, but they've been practicing on U.S. highways, on Japanese highways, on Taiwanese highways, on Australian highways, and on European highways, landing not only planes, but jets and war vehicles or warplanes. And that is a practice in case if all of your air bases get knocked out, if all of your airways or your all of your airports are down. If somebody knocked out your airports all in a single thing, then you would have to have your warplanes land on U.S. highways or on highways, right? That says to me that they're at least practicing for the most probable scenario here, and we hope that never happens. But again, people should know this, right? I don't know why people are trying to put their head in the sand and just act like none of this is happening. And then Russia could create 2 strike groups to surround UKR forces, says General Zabrodowski. It says that General Lieutenant Mikhailo Zabrodowski, and I'm saying that wrong, I guarantee it, first deputy of the head of Parliamentary Defense Committee, wrote in his column for Ukiniform on November 1st that such groups might be tasked with launching 2 simultaneous strikes from the northern and southern directions. It says the northern group could probably strike in the direction of Sumy to Poltava, then to Dnipropetrovsk, and the southern group from Zaporizhia to Dnepropetrovsk. Man, those names. In this case, the task of the troops on the existing contact line in the east will only be to restrain the groups of the armed forces of UKR and prevent the use of military units in other threatening directions. It says the ultimate military goal of the operation may be that Vlad's troops dreamed of strategic surrounding of the UKR armed forces group on the left bank of the Dnipro River. Meanwhile, an indisputable decisive political result for the Vlad Federation may force UKR to negotiate from a position of pressure, similar to the conditions of March this year. So why is he saying that? Obviously, this would be they could look at this and war game it out and go, hey, if they did this, they might be able to trap a bunch. And then what? Negotiate that they throw up the white flag or something and give up because they don't want all of those people to perish? Or do you think that this is set up for something else?
Well, it's certainly a different perspective than we've seen coming out of UKR. It's always coming out of there as the narrative of, oh, look, we've pushed them back here, we've pushed them back there, they're losing here, they're losing there, they're losing. And now it's like, oh, wait a minute, maybe there's this other way that they can hurt us. And if they do this and it looks like they're getting ready to do that, then we may be in trouble. So it is kind of an odd position. Maybe I don't know this person other than what they've reported here, the general lieutenant. But in the sense that this is being published out is kind of a little interesting, so to speak. I think it does go back to a lot of the propaganda that we've seen that tells us that their leaders have and their troops have been, dwindled, and that they're just, playing with, the leftover weapons they can find, and that they don't have any people and they're having to grab people off the streets, so to speak. And I'm talking about Vlad when I say that. That's sort of the message we've had. But then you get something like this and you it makes you wonder that maybe there's a little bit different perspective on the ground there, and that there really is some strength. And as we've said, there probably is a lot of strength that's been held back on Vlad's side, because he probably doesn't want to necessarily run through all of his resources at one time. He's probably holding back and saving. So that's sort of the question I have when I read this, and when I think through what the message they're trying to portray.
Now, what about the military leaders? This seems like, if you read this headline, it's kind of like, well, duh. Russian military leaders discussed use of nuclear weapons, U.S. officials say. Well, it's kind of like, no, it's here.
Are they late to the game?
Yeah, like, do you want to go over this? I mean, it's kind of it's stupid. It's kind of
it's like they're late to the game, but we do know. But at the same time, like, if this is new intel about specific conversations, so we're moving away from rhetoric or TV pundits or hearsay into much more specific, and like, look, they've got intelligence about these conversations that were circulated just a couple of weeks ago. They're talking mid-October timeframe where this was going on, and the intelligence coming out of our CIA and stuff like that, specifically providing proof. Now, I go back to, is this, again, the laundry list of proof that they're going to put together to justify our actions into entering or doing something more than we've done? Or is this are they trying to build the laundry list so they can convince NATO you have to go, even though Article 5 hasn't been hit yet? So it'll be interesting to see how they continue to play all of this intel out.
They're making a case to get us involved so it doesn't get to this certain point, right? And then DOD announces new contract awards for its Internet in Space effort. Seems to me like something weird is going on. It says that Microsoft, Spider Oak, and Amazon are among the companies that have been awarded contracts to help the federal government develop a hybrid communications network of civil, commercial, and military satellites. According to an announcement from the Defense Department's Defense Innovation Unit, or DUI. Oh, wait, sorry, that's Paul Pelosi. Never mind. DIU on Wednesday. It says that DIU is working with the U.S. Space Force, the Space Warfighting Analysis Center, and the Air Force Research Laboratory Space Vehicles Directorate to develop an interoperable hybrid space architecture, or HSA. It says that will allow for the secure flow of data across diverse communications networks. In a blog post, Jason Zander, Executive Vice President of Microsoft's Strategic Missions and Technologies team, said that the HSA will be built in part upon Microsoft Azure and will leverage key capabilities for our suite of Azure space solutions. Okay, so first of all, Mr. Gates is going to be involved in worldwide communications, which, you know that this has been worked on for a while, right? And what kind of gets me is all of his little remarks about how, well, one, he said in a quote, there will be a civil conflict, and he said war. He said there will be a civil war, and there will be an event that happens around the day we all drop our stuff in the box. Now, that is supposed to be in 2 more years, not this one, or who knows which one he's talking about. But that is kind of freaky. And then the fact that he takes jokingly pictures of the books that he thinks everybody should read, and right in the middle, it's Blackout, the book about, and I believe it was, Dex, do you remember who wrote the book about all of the power grids going down? It was actually a famous journalist that used to be, it wasn't Walter Cronkite. Ted Koppel. And he has that book in the middle of a stack, and it sticks out because all of the other books are white, and it's a black book, and it's different color. It says Blackout, and he's sitting there smiling, holding it. And people think, oh, that's just a coincidence, right? I don't. I just think it's so weird how he is buying up all this farmland and buying all this stuff up. He's been involved in every part of the other stuff since 2019, and now he's involved in this new communications network. And I know that he's not hands-on, but he has most definitely pull with all of the Microsoft company. And I know he stepped down. He stepped down from like the board or whatever. But you know that he that's his baby. And it says the HSA is essentially DOD's effort to build an internet in space and will support the department's goal of establishing information advantage for national security. So they're saying this is for like a homeland security kind of thing. They're going to put something up above us so they can communicate. And again, this could be used for emergency situations. Maybe down here, everything's down, but up there, or whoever has access to the system will be able to communicate just fine. It's kind of like, I think also Operation Starfall, how they put this idea of putting up balloons with satellites. Maybe they don't need that anymore. Maybe they already have something in the works and it's going to be only accessible to certain people or to certain agencies or military or whatever else. It says by collaborating with commercial partners, HSA vastly expands its range of satellites and space systems across diverse orbits, ground station, and communication paths. Dex, what did you think when you first saw this?
Well, I think when we heard that the DOD was using the fact that Starlink was okay and surviving, and basically wasn't being targeted, that meant that it was a good sign for their communication system. Well, this is the communication system that's going into place. So I'm kind of shocked that it's with these specific players, but then again, these players may not be playing in the hardware components. They may be more so in some of the software like Microsoft. But
so are you saying that because they think that it's not that Vlad doesn't have the ability to knock him down? So are you kind of implying that maybe all of our ground-based systems could be knocked out, and they think that this is a better thing to have because it can't be knocked out?
Well, it's definitely a better redundancy in the sense that you can't take it out with power or take it out with wires, wire cutting. So thinking about, knocking out power in a local area or knocking down telecommunication lines, you can easily take down the networking and the communication in that area. So if you have it up in the sky wirelessly and it's not on ground towers, then it becomes harder to hit. I think what the statement they made in that news article we reported was, hey, it looks good because Elon put all his satellites right over UKR so that they could have this network of information, and they used it and they continue to use it for their military purposes. So it becomes a target. And since March, nothing has happened. They haven't targeted it. They haven't hit it. They haven't taken any of it out. So that's a good sign that use case of doing this low Earth orbit mesh network, if you want to call it that, is actually viable. And then, of course, we heard Vlad come out and say, oh, no, we'll target them if we want to target them. And then we heard, our administration come back and say, well, if you do, we're going to go after you, et cetera. But the point is they haven't done it. They didn't do it. They didn't take any of it out. And even if they did try to, you have to take a whole lot of it out because it's a mesh. If you just, it's like if you poke a hole in one spot, it's not that big of a deal. There's 60 others in the general area that'll pick up where that one left off. So unless you're going to take out thousands and thousands of them at one time, you really can't make that big of an impact just taking out one or two here and there with missiles.
Well, it's a scary thought if they did do it, and we've heard about the whole domino effect if they all start knocking each other out and kind of spinning around and starting just hitting garbage at one point. But it seems like they're not willing to do that because it would also possibly knock out their own systems as well. So if they're doing this, but hear how they put this. It says this project will pursue the goals of an agile and resilient communications architecture that will be able to move data through commercial, military, and allied assets, while integrating multi-domain cloud-based storage and analytics. And then, quote, it's time for the internet to move off planet. I don't know. Something creeps me out about this. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, keep in mind, a Starlink satellite is extremely small. It's not like these other big, massive satellites. The older the satellite, the bigger it was. And the fact that these are very specific to their purpose, and the whole point is they're made to be small, very, very tiny. except for maybe the sail that goes up. So that also adds to the fact that if it's small, it's harder to hit, as well as if you do hit it, it doesn't create as much debris as, say, taking out some of these other bigger satellites that have these, large camera, lenses and things like that, and other things on them. So these communications satellites are like these little tiny ones, so to speak, the babies of satellites. And especially as technology evolves every month, every year, they probably get smaller and smaller.
Yeah, and which means they're also going to be harder and harder to hit if they're moving around at whatever speed and then trying to target them. Again, before we talk about the earthquake, just a quick reminder, make sure to go over and check out Energy. This is actually what powers our whole studio here. And if you haven't heard about Energy, it's one of the best and most coveted solar generator companies out there. That is because they make extremely, extremely high quality products that are made well to last through possibly decades, if not 50, 60, 70 years if you take care of it. These are built like they used to build things. Again, it is solid, tough, and rumble. I could imagine something like this falling off a truck and being, a slight scratch. That's how durable and strong these things are. Again, if you haven't seen these things, they are awesome because they're modular. They work like Legos. They can stack, and you can actually expand it up to 96 batteries. Just one battery in the head unit is going to be good for most people. But if you do want to actually stack up, say, as much as you want, you can do that. As far as length of how long you have power for, you could have 4 panels and 90 batteries if you wanted to. Again, having that stored up is pretty awesome. But with this, it's even cooler because you can actually add accessories that triple the charging capability. So instead of 4 panels, you can actually get a mod, the supercharger unit, that will actually allow you to plug in 12 panels. That is really, really awesome as far as this goes, and it is absolutely silent, meaning no one will hear this running. There is no gas involved. You don't have to store fuel, which is dangerous, and most people can't even do it in the first place, especially if you're in an apartment. And this is something that is extremely easy. You plug and play. Plug in a solar panel, point it towards the sun, and you are good. You have power. Go to marfooglenews.com/energy. The Flex 1500 is definitely my highest recommendation. I use it. I have not used the X2 yet. But again, this system is by far one of the coolest things out there. The X2, that isn't a all built-in one. This is actually, they say it's better for if you are a van lifer or if you are doing RV stuff, then this is good because it's an all built-in one. It's competing with a completely different kind of setup. Now they have that competing with one segment in the solar generators, and they also have the LT. The LT is a smaller version that can get you through a storm, keep all your phones charged. So not to confuse you, but these three all have their different kind of pros and cons. I would say out of all of them, though, the Flex 1500 is pretty much, it's good for everybody. If you're RV or you're a van lifer and you already got that, you basically got a step better. So don't worry about if you didn't get the X2. The X2 is shipping in December. So in fact, they say in next month they're going to start shipping out. So make sure to go check it out. The Kodiak X2, and then of course the Flex 1500 and the Kodiak LT. All right, that's marfooglenews.com/energy, INERGY, and make sure to use the code Marfoogle to save upwards of $170 off on certain packages. All right, so the earthquake that happened off of California, if you're following Dutch Sense or other earthquake trackers, they're saying obviously that there's a lot of activity right now. With this, I would say any earthquake off of the West Coast is something that we should pay attention to, and by we, anybody who's living on the West Coast. The Cascadia subduction zone is something that I definitely worry about because I am in Washington, and if you're in California, Oregon, or Washington, you should know exactly what those words mean. Cascadia subduction zone goes from the beginning of, or the end of, the beginning of California all the way up to Canada. So all along that point, we will have a 9+ earthquake. we will have a 9.0 plus earthquake, and we will have a tsunami. So that is something that everybody needs to pay attention to. As far as right now, this is a good kind of wake-up call for anybody on the West Coast to have something ready, or to have a go bag, or to be aware of what you are going to do in the case of an earthquake. The magnitude 6 earthquake strikes in the Ring of Fire, 750 miles off the coast of California, just a week after a 5.1 magnitude hit San Francisco. But no tsunami warning will be issued. And that's a massive earthquake, by the way. 6.0 is big. Once it hits 6, that's when people start paying attention. 5.0s can definitely be felt, but as far as 6.0s, that's where it starts going exponentially into a crazier world. 6.0 at each point is exponentially bigger than the last, and that's why the more points you go up, it is really, really quite a different beast. So that happened. So I would be aware of your surroundings and watch your animals, watch your dogs and your cats, and see if they're acting weird. Again, I always watch my animals, and if they start acting weird, I start watching Dutch Sense. And then SpaceX may send the Starship on its first orbital flight. Before we talk about that, I want to say thank you to Be Real Beast. Good evening, fam. Welcome to all new fam. Keep the faith. Luck is for suckers. God bless. Be Real Beast, I want to thank you for your huge support of the show, and thank you for being here almost every show now, Be Real. I appreciate that. Vic says Marf. Let's see here. It says Marf. Hope you're all doing well. Seen an object in the night sky as large as the sun this weekend. Project Bluebeam, Nibiru, artificial sun. In all the chaos, cling to Jesus. He is the rock. Vic, nice to see you, and nice to see you here after years now. Cheryl Beth Carter, thank you to our veterans. Love you. Keep us safe and hold the line. Again, that's the thing is it's crazy because you see all these people that hate what our government is doing. They don't believe in it. But at the same time, you know, I guess the whole being proud of our country and proud of our military, you'll see people that are proud of our military, but then disagree with what's going on. It's kind of hard to do, but you have to at least respect the people, the men and women who are still fighting for freedom, or at least in their minds, that is what they're going to do. That's why they say that we'll have a problem if. They even did a survey back during Jade Helman. They asked soldiers if they would, take their own people in, and I believe a big chunk of them said no. Even if they said yes, I bet they would go against those orders. That's the faith that I have, is if they did end up trying to have U.S. soldiers do something to U.S. people, I think our U.S. guys, especially the ones in the military, I think they would figure something else out. I think that good always wins over evil over the long term. The Lifeboat, thank you so much. Thanks, Adam and Dex, for all you do and for all your help. No problem, Lifeboat. And again, if you guys haven't checked out the Lifeboat channel, that's Wages World and his other friend, Thomas, I believe. And they do a great show helping people deal with recovery and everything else. Kay Parker Fraser, keep up the news. We can't get it otherwise. Mainstream sucks. Love you, Adam, Dex, and Mods. Well, thank you, Kay Parker Fraser. Jamie, thank you for the super sticker. And Stephen McMahon says the original reason for the space race in the 50s and the 60s was that missiles shot from the moon couldn't be detected coming at the enemy's country. By the way, lots of weird stuff happening around the moon. People are seeing a lot of weird sightings of things hovering above the moon. This is just from people emailing me and saying that they can see it in the nighttime sky. Don't know if it's true. Of course, a lot of it doesn't get video. There are some videos floating around, but now you don't know what to believe because obviously now everything can be faked and look real. Reverend Brian York, much love and Godspeed, Foogle fam, Marf, and Dex. Best mods anywhere. Great news show. Thank you, Reverend Brian York. I appreciate that. And then Stephen McMahon, it's very possible that weapons development in the last 70 years has made nuclear boomers obsolete. Yeah, well, I mean, you could have something in space that could do way worse. Look at the two amphibious assault carriers that just magically caught fire for 4 days. And there's now updated on that story. I updated you guys on the soldier they said that lit ours on fire. He ended up getting acquitted of all charges, and they don't have any proof. So now who's their fall guy? Now everybody went past that. That's why we archived the news and we go back on that. I thought it was weird from day one, and now they say that he didn't do it. So what the hell set the fire on that ship? 3 months after a Chinese ship of the same kind of carrier caught fire for 4 or 5 days in port. Not in a conflict, in port. 2 assault carriers, the same kind of very specific Navy boats, both caught fire in port. If there's not some sort of secret war going on, then I don't know what to say. And then EOD Vet says, remember, satellite communications are inherently centralized to those who own them. Any area can receive and lose that functionality at the click of a button. That's right. EOD Vet, an amazing point. Yeah, they could just turn it off on us or on whoever's using it. So Starship is an exciting thing because obviously Starship is what they say will go to Mars and will go to the moon and everything else. So as far as this goes, Dex, I believe you've seen actual launches of SpaceX. This is the biggest one. This is the big honkin', he used to call it the BFR, the big effing rocket, right? And
yeah,
now,
that's right. This is the big one. We've seen this. They've gone through 2 tests, or they've gone through many tests, but one of the most significant ones we saw was when they tried one of their tests, a test fire, and it actually, fuel had, I don't know if it had leaked or something had happened, and it caught on fire and it basically exploded. So it was a big, anomaly, if you want to call, if they like to call it that, in this agency or in this realm. But they also did some static test firings of this over time, but they've got a lot of setbacks from the government. So the FAA was pushing them really hard, especially around environmental impact, because they're trying to launch this from Texas, and that area had to be cleared from the FAA. And there was like 75 different changes they had to make to meet all of these different demands from the government before they were able to actually get to this point. So now they're at the point where they're going to do their first real test launch, like put this thing up. It's going to go up. It's only a 90 minute flight. It's not a very long one, but it's going to go up from Texas. The main rocket booster will detach after a few minutes. It will splash land into the Gulf of Mexico, and then the rest of the ship will go into orbit, go all the way around, and then do its own landing in the water near Hawaii. So if all goes well, we could actually see this in December. It's a major milestone for them. That's the one that's behind schedule. It's a very important to Elon. He told everybody it was critical for the growth of SpaceX and for Starlink specifically, because they had a schedule to get so many of these satellites out, and the numbers that they needed this big, heavy, type of large rocket to do that. Also, though, as you said, this is key and critical to getting the moon missions and the Mars missions up. If that's going to happen, this is going to be the size and mammoth rocket that's going to do that.
It kind of looks like fake in a way, as far as how does this thing come apart? The traditional ones have the kind of zones and sections that come apart. This one, I haven't seen the diagrams on how it's supposedly going to work, but it's just such a weird design. It's something out of like 1930s, like fictional, space books or something. But I would love to see something like this launch in person. I know you can't get that close, but this, for the people that doubt that this is, that any of the stuff above us is real, I would say it's a debate that nobody can really answer as of now. There's only a handful of people that have been to space. So I'm waiting until they say that people will be able to go up at some point. I think that it's a debate that only has existed for a few years and will probably only exist for a few more years if we end up going up to space. I don't know anybody who's been to space, and most of you don't. Last time I said this, though, somebody said that they had an astronaut in the family that did go up. But again, you don't. I mean, it's like arguing with somebody. What ancient Egypt looked like when neither one of us have been there, right? I guess with this, it's a huge thing, and it's something that if Elon is telling the truth, he thinks that the end of the world will come, and he said our best chance for humanity is to be an interplanetary species. And he's saying that because he believes in the end of the world. If you hear his speeches on this, he talks about the end of the world a lot. He's one of us. So, again, by one of us, those who do look at all of this. I have seen, as far as myself, since I was like 18 years old, I have felt like we are in end times. So, and then Dex, go ahead.
Hey, Adam, we have a Play My Video that was talked about quite a bit in chat from everyone tonight, from a Marfoogle family member named Joel. I put it in screener if you want to show it. I think he's got more information that he may be able to share at a later time, because it sounds like he's got a lot of video. He just tried to put some pieces together of what he had and share it with us. So you might want to read the description there too for everybody.
Yeah, it says, so early morning in F-22 Raptor in at least Mach 1.5 or possibly Mach 2. I can see a black craft being chased by the F-22 at Mach speeds, and the craft stopped mid-air, got right behind the F-22, and the F-22 shot its flare, and the black craft was shooting something as it flew above me close to the ground. Maybe 400 to 700 feet, not much detail, but I know a lot about aircrafts, seen them in action personally before, so I know what I'm talking about. All right, let's see. So are you saying that this video actually has that? Let's see here. Oh. Dex, it actually says it's been removed by the uploader. So don't know what happened with that. I'll try to copy it again. Or...
Yep, he removed it. So there we go. Big tease.
All right. Well, we'll see.
Hey, we tried. You guys did a good job of making sure that we knew about it and told you guys to send it to Play My Video. So I did get to see it. What I did see was what looked like the shape, a triangle shape, and there was some movement. There's a lot of questions I had when I saw it about like what kind of equipment was he using, how was it taken. So maybe he's uploading a different version or doing something else with it. He said it was part one of an hour-long footage that he had. So we'll sit tight and pay attention to our Play My Video feed, and if he sends something else in, we'll look at it again.
All right, and then Dex, so was the person that we were talking to, is it their footage, or they're claiming it's their footage?
It was on, yeah, it was claiming as theirs. It was uploaded unlisted on their channel. I did watch it. I saw it myself, so I did see something, and I just refreshed and it is gone, so that's why you can't play it. Okay,
that's not weird at all.
Yeah, I have no idea why, but yeah, it's not there.
Now okay. Well, I hope he re-uploads it. That would be that's kind of freaky. All right, we'll try to get it back. And then disinformation push shows DHS politicizing itself. Says that top Homeland Security Republicans, leading Republican lawmakers on the House and Senate Homeland Security committees, are criticizing the Department of Homeland Security for further politicizing itself in the name of dispelling disinfo. The rebuke from Representative John Katko out of New York comes after an investigative report published leaked DHS documents detailing how the agency is still working with big tech to combat disinfo on social media on a variety of topics. By the way, we've covered how they have worked several times. The U.S. government has worked with these social media platforms and even admitted it. During several things, they said that they were working with Facebook. They're obviously, the other day we reported that they're watching tweets. They're watching everything, which, yeah, it's like if something was to get, that's, you know what I mean? And it's perfect timing to cover something like this. Go ahead, Dex.
Well, and it's also interesting because this is the same group that had that board. Remember the board? I don't want to say keep saying all the buzzwords, but they had created a board. They put a leader on it. Then everybody got an uproar. She got canned or she left, and then they said they disbanded the board. But I think the point being is they're saying, yeah, they disbanded the board, but all the actions and activities that they were going to do with that board, they're still doing. That's the claim being made. So you can read more into it if you guys want to know. You can all probably speculate, which I'm sure you will do. And you can, take it for what it's worth. But Snowden has told us all about what the government can do with information that they have their hands on. And if these guys are talking to big tech, they got their hands on a lot of information.
Yeah, and it says all of these subjects here, like the kind of the hot topics that they're watching, right? Well, it's who decides what is good and what is bad information. That is the argument, and we all know that it's a real argument. It's fact. There have been things that have been called this and called that, and it's a biased system. So it's pretty messed up. Some would say, tyrannical, something like that. As far as, what's happening, this is something they do during wartime too. They've actually done drills and war games, and in those drills and exercises, they essentially go out how they would handle this kind of stuff. In emergencies, even. Just say what happened with CV, right? What that happened with 2019. If you look at how they handled it in the exercise called 2, 1, and 1, that exercise that happened before, in that exercise, they talk about how media and government would handle media and information flow and all of this other stuff. And now we are in it. So, all right. And then thank you over on DLive. Thank you, Vicky K, which, by the way, I got your feedback last night, and I totally hear you. Thank you so much for the feedback. And again, I got the message. Totally was surprised by that, too. But I could see it. So thank you so much. Vicky K, appreciate you. And again, we always make sure to keep positive people around. Again, Sniffle711, thanks for the updates. Love you guys. Nancy B. Wild, Scooby-Doo Right, Kimbria, and let's see here, Michelle K, and everybody else. Thank you guys for being over on DLive. Everybody on Rumble or Rumble, thank you. I appreciate everybody that's watching over there. It's a great place already, and it's only getting better. EOD Vet, thank you, Stephen McMahon, and everybody else that has popped in tonight. I really do appreciate everybody that supported, and especially Be Real Beast. Thank you for your generous support at the beginning of the show. I hope you stuck around long enough because I know it took a while to get to you. So thank you. Dex, let's go over the web only. We've got a lot of it.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. Don't go anywhere, folks. I'm going to hit some of these headlines for you. MarfoogleNews.com. Click on the thumbnail for the show. Open up the description on YouTube or over there on the Umble and click on show notes. It'll take you right here. You get all the news we just covered, and then you're going to get to the rest of the story. As we just talked about one politician talking specifically about DHS, we've got another one, pretty high-profile one, who's talking about the CV and specifically starting to launch probes into it. So that's kind of interesting. We'll see if anything actually comes of it, but it's always a topic. I know people like to see what's going on. In the Twitter world, man, there's a lot happening. So the U.S. is actually exploring whether it has authority to review the deal. I don't know what that would mean, if they're going to want to undo the deal, change the deal. But it seems like the deal's done at this point. But I guess the government can regulate and come in and change that if they wanted. I don't know how. There's a good article about the 5 major moves he just made. Were you saying something?
No.
Okay, sorry. Thought I heard something in my ear. Apologies. The people that are being banned, apparently Elon has come out to say that they won't have their accounts restored for weeks. We don't know how long that really means. I think they're still trying to figure things out over there. Obviously, cut a lot of people and having to create new roles and new board or commissions or whatever you want to call it that he's creating to look at this kind of stuff and deal with it. And I mentioned earlier to talk about charging $8 a month for those that have blue check marks. So I think a lot of people are crying over that. And speaking of the big tech, another person in political power is wanting to explore regulations of those big tech industries. So that's kind of not surprising, but specifically big tech's expansion into the auto space. So there's a lot that's going to happen there. Look, we got a lot of coverage going on specifically around UKR and what's happened. That'll continue. There's been, apparently like 100 more missiles into UKR. Zelensky's come out and made some, statements like he speaks better Russian than they do. I don't know why he would say that, but that's there. There's a lot more going on with the hammer incident in San Fran. You guys know exactly what I'm talking about when I say that. There's a lot of updates on that conversation that's going on. And there was a big discussion that came out tonight, and we don't have it here because it happened right before the show started, and I'll try to find a link and put it up, but I'm sure you guys can find it, and everyone will be talking about it. But our administration came out and had something to say tonight publicly. It was from the Union Station, where he was setting up to, I guess, give this speech and telling us what we need to be prepared for coming up in the next 6 days, specifically around the event that happens on that second Tuesday of the month. So that, I think the interesting part was telling us to be patient and wait. I'll leave it at that. I don't want to get involved in the sides of that coin because it is a little touchy, but you're going to hear a lot more, and we'll probably have that updated on tomorrow's show as well in the overflow section. So that and so much more, all the political coverage is here, everything else, and I can't wait for this Tuesday event to hurry up and get past us. So go to marfooglenews.com, click on the thumbnail for the show, open up that description on YouTube or on Humble, and you can get right here to the rest of the story.
Thank you, Dex. And we didn't, since we're on while it was happening, I'm very curious on what was said as far as the stuff with the San Francisco event. People need to do the research. Don't just believe what you hear. Take a look at the history of everybody and where they lived and what side they were on. And don't just take somebody's, one-sided argument about it. Look at both. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for popping in tonight. Thank you so much for everybody that watches every single night. Thank you for the replay watchers watching in the morning. If you're drinking your coffee or you're watching this at work or listening to us on the base, thank you so much. Thank you for your service to the vets that are watching right now. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for giving up your time. Again, it's harder for some people to I guess, be proud of the cause. But I don't think there's any doubt that we're proud of the men and women that are a part of it. So thank you so much. Also, just a reminder for vets, if you want to help a vet, you go down to carsforheroes.org, and if you have an older vehicle that you're not using, if it's just sitting there gathering dust or the grass is taller than the roof, you can donate that and get a tax write-off, and it will go towards something good. They could auction it off and then possibly put that towards a car that runs. Or if you have a running car and you just want to give it away and it would be to a good cause, then you can also do that. Go to carsforheroes.org and you can donate it. It's a tax write-off. It helps you out, and it could possibly help a veteran gain transportation, which, again, they need as much help as they can get, especially in some states where they don't take care of their vets. That's, again, another really great thing you can do. All right. Thank you, Dex. I appreciate you. And thank you so much for your service tonight.
Much love. Great job, brother.
Thank the mods. They did an awesome job. Remember, over on marfooglenews.com/friends, you can find all of the mods. Bones, CJ Blaze, Jem, Jammer1, Lisa R. Hall, PNW Affliction, Rip Curl Readiness, and RJL Harris Survival Game. It always does a Saturday show. Trinity Redder, Blue Pill, Hi-Ho, Kermit the Frog here. Does really great shows and does almost nightly or has been doing nightly shows, and the chat's been popping over there when they can. Thank you guys. Much love. Again, be safe, be prepared, and marf out. It's now time for the shoutro. It's not an outro. It's not a shout out. It's a shoutro. It's where I say thank you to the people that matter most, you. Let's make a new one for Be Real Beast. Be Real Beast.
be real beast. Bum, 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 bum. 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 I say boom, boom.